So Trump just lost a big case against the law firm Jenner and Block, and a Republican appointed judge ruled against him.
Breaking right now, a U.S. district judge is permanently barring the Trump administration from enforcing an executive order targeting the law firm Jenner and Block. It's a story the ABC 7i team has covered and continues to follow. The firm has offices in several cities, including Chicago. The firm employed one of the top prosecutors involved in the Mueller investigation of Russian meddling into the 2016 election. The Republican-appointed judge says the president's attempt to punish a law firm he doesn't like violates the First Amendment.
For more on the context of this situation, I'm inviting attorney and investigative reporter and one of my favorite people on the internet, Parnas, to give us some more context. Aaron, can you give us some more context on what's going on here?
Yeah, for sure. Well, super excited to be here to join you because this is a really important topic. I mean, to give you some more context, Donald Trump signed numerous executive orders targeting, I believe, about 8 or 9 big law firms, some of the biggest law firms in the world. I mean, these firms have 1,000, 2,000 attorneys. I even summered at one of them, at one of these big law firms. And he's targeting them because a number of their attorneys are either A, Democrats, B, work for Democratic causes, or C, work to potentially investigate him in some way, shape, or form. So the Jenner and Block executive order, as the clip said, well, they targeted Jenner and Block because one of the attorneys at Jenner and Block was part of the Mueller investigation. And we know that Donald Trump has this major vendetta against anyone who's ever investigated him or prosecuted him. So now some law firms are challenging Donald Trump's executive orders in court. Others are kind of just folding and handing him what he wants and providing free legal services to the causes that he supports. And we're seeing a really interesting kind of situation develop where law firms are literally winning and by pushing back against the Trump administration, like Jenner and Block, while others capitulated early on and now are kind of, dare I say, shit out of luck.
And as you mentioned, a lot of these firms were targeted for explicitly political reasons, even mentioned in the executive order. One example is Perkins Coie, which just won another distinct case against the Trump administration. Here's a clip, folks, from former Perkins Coie partner Mark Elias talking about how he was targeted. His former firm was targeted because of his political stances.
Donald Trump hates me because I fight hard and I fight for free and fair elections. I insist on fighting for democracy in court, fighting for voting rights in court, and insist on telling the truth about what the outcome of the 2020 election was.
Are there risks in doing the work that you're doing?
I'd be an idiot not to be worried. The question, though, is what do? Right? Do you just cower in the corner? Do you just try to disappear? Do you just leave democracy to fend for itself? Or do you stand tall and do the best you can every day to represent your clients and try to preserve the rule of law?
Mark Elias first crossed Trump in 2016. He was the top lawyer for the Clinton campaign. Then in 2020, when Trump and allies challenged the election results, Elias fought in court and won.
Just completely heroic behavior by Mark Elias. Aaron, can you explain what these executive orders did to make some firms decide to cut deals with the administration?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a very basic perspective, and it's interesting, not enough people are really talking about the actual mechanics of these executive orders because law firms, any law firm, these big law firms, they're all companies at the end of the day. They all have a profit, a bottom line that they have to meet, right? They're making money, they have clients. These executive orders threaten to completely shut down their entire business operations, their entire business models. Some of them prevented attorneys from entering government buildings, including federal courthouses. Some of them stripped security clearances from attorneys working at the law firm, so they would automatically no longer be able to represent a number of big clients who may have dealings with the federal government. Some of them canceled government contracts of clients or of clients at some of these firms, and some of them prevented any company that uses some of these firms to preventing them from getting government contracts. So to put that into perspective, if a firm like Perkins Coie did not challenge this and this went into effect, its attorneys can no longer go into a federal courthouse, which means that I would say about 60-70% of its entire litigation gone. That's hundreds of millions of dollars worth of a business right there, gone. That's number one. Number two, any government contract that the firm currently has with a government entity or any client that currently has a government contract with the federal government done. So there's a massive amount of money lost for the firm
That's
there.
just devastating.
You just can't represent them. And three, personal attorneys no longer have a security clearance, right? So any big company that deals with the federal government, whether it's a government contract, whether it's a litigation, or really anything, you have to have some type of security clearance to be able to see some of these sensitive documents. Gone. So Perkins Coie would essentially have to go out of business, or essentially cut 70% of its entire workforce, cut 70% of its entire client base. It's the death penalty for these law firms, and not enough people really kind of highlight the actual mechanics of these executive orders.
He's basically, targeting firms that have opposed him historically with the threat of obliteration unless they cut a deal. Now, I want you to talk a little bit more about what these deals look like. We heard that many of the biggest firms in the country cut these deals. What was included within them?
Yeah, so I think the big bottom line there is these firms agreed to provide hundreds of millions of dollars in pro bono work to support efforts that Donald Trump personally supports. So things like abortion restrictions, things like pro Second Amendment litigation. Essentially, these firms agreed to no longer have any DEI policies or any diversity hiring practices. Those are the big kind of top lines from what these firms agreed to. But ultimately, what people need to be talking about is that it's not necessarily what they agreed to, it's the fact that they agreed to it in the first place that's really the issue. These law firms have some of the best attorneys in the country. They are the most highly respected, highly trained attorneys. They went to the best law schools. Many of them clerked for Supreme Court justices on the right and on the left. They've had training for, combined centuries of training. And yet they capitulate to a president who just signs an executive order. And an executive order is not law. An executive order is just an executive order. It's not a law passed by Congress. It's not really super enforceable in a number of scenarios. And that's why this was really struck down by the federal courts. And it's really scary that the nation's top lawyers, who should be pushing back when they get targeted, just kind of fold. And it makes you think, well, if you're a client and you're looking to hire them, are they the ones that are going to go to bat and defend you when the federal government puts entire weight on you? I don't know.
It seems less and less likely. Trump basically extorted much of the American legal system into giving him hundreds of millions, actually in total billions of dollars of free representation. And that's horrifying how easily that was for him to do. Now, we mentioned two cases that he's lost, the Jenner case and previously the Perkins case. Is this now kind of over, or can we expect more attacks on law firms and potentially more law firms cutting deals?
Oh, I'm sure there'll be more attacks on law firms because I think Donald Trump saw that some law firms don't want to go through the hassle of litigating against him. Because when you think about it, yeah, Perkins won and Jenner and Block won, but at the end of the day, MAGA-aligned clients are not going to go to them anymore because they fought Donald Trump in court. So a number of law firms, I guarantee you, are going to say, you know what, like we don't want the headache, we don't want to have to deal with this in a legal battle with the administration. We want goodwill with this president, and they're just going to fold. So we'll see what happens. I personally think his crusade against these law firms may be done because I think he's targeted all of them that he doesn't like at the moment. But there's nothing that stops him from saying, like, we're going to sue CBS News. CBS News beats him, right? And then the law firm that represents CBS News has a new executive order assigned against it. So he's going to use this as a threat moving forward for anyone who opposes him or the administration.
Now, something you mentioned in a lot of your reporting is it's not just law firms that are being targeted by the Trump administration. It's the entirety of civil society, all the independent institutions which can constrain him, and the institutions that are kind of aligned with the Democratic Party. I have one last clip I want to show.
It's also political, and you look at some of the people who are being targeted by Trump's Justice Department and other investigations as part of the Trump administration. There's a common theme among all those different entities you see from Act Blue to Letitia James. There are people that Trump either doesn't like or perhaps they're Democrats.
So you look at that list, it's like a really astounding list, right? You have Harvard University, you have media institutions. What is the strategy here, and how broad of the attack are we facing?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this from the beginning of his second term. This is a president who's not running for re-election. This is a president who has absolute immunity for all official acts based under the Supreme Court's precedent. So this is a president that is very emboldened. And we haven't had a president like this in our lifetime because he truly does not care politically the ramifications of his decisions. So since taking office again in January, Donald Trump's primary goal has been to see how far he can really test the bounds of the law, test the bounds of the Constitution, test the bounds of civil society. And we see it with the birthright citizenship executive order. We see it with his attacks against media companies, his attacks against law firms. He's doing things that traditionally are unconstitutional or unlawful or would cause mass outrage among the American electorate. But he doesn't care about the third one because no one's running for re-election. And the first two, if the courts don't stop him, then he can get away with things like the birthright citizenship executive order. And if the law firms don't fight back, then he can get away with bullying them. So he's really testing to see how far he can go with a number of these things. And a number of these entities, unfortunately, are just folding and allowing him to do it, giving him permission so that he can continue doing it. And that's why I think it's important that out of that list, there are a number of folks fighting back from Act Blue, from Letitia James. I mean, they're not just saying, you know what, we're going to throw our hands up and you can come after us. They're going to fight back, and that's important. Because if he doesn't have any pushback, what we're seeing now, it's nothing compared to what we'll see coming forward.
And I think we're seeing more defiance. Originally, with the first academic institution Trump targeted, that being Columbia University, they bent the knee. They basically allowed him to assert administrative control over their university. Law firms originally bent the knee, and then some later started to fight. So my hope is we're seeing more and more resistance to this administration as it becomes clearly less and less popular, and you're only going to see more over time. Aaron, any closing thoughts on this topic? Thank you so much for joining me.
I guess my one closing thought is, listen, we're going to get through this. It's not the end. It's far from the end. Our government has survived a lot worse in the past, and it will survive this too. And if you push back, he can't get away with it. So keep pushing back.
Folks, if you want to get news from someone, get it from Aaron Parnas. He has it before the mainstream outlets even have it. I get like 50% of my news from him. So it's real. If you think I'm informed, you can thank this guy.